He stood in front of me, his voice cold, his eyes colder. "My lawyer will be here tomorrow," my husband said. "And remember, this house is not yours." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of sacrifice, erased in one sentence. But he didn't know something. He didn't know what I had already discovered. He didn't know what I had already prepared. And he definitely didn't know that 2 weeks later, in a courtroom full of strangers, he would fall to his knees when he saw my face and the evidence I carried. This is the story of how a quiet, loyal wife became the woman who turned her husband's world upside down. It didn't begin in the courtroom. It began the night I overheard a phone call that shattered everything I believed about love and about him. "My name is Elena. I married Daniel when I was 26, young, hopeful, trusting, the kind of woman who believed marriage meant partnership. For years, I supported him. I worked 2 jobs while he built his business. I cooked. I cleaned. I saved every extra dollar so we could buy this house, our dream home. Or so I thought. Because somewhere along the way, something changed. Daniel stopped appreciating me. He stopped talking to me. And then, he stopped coming home early. I thought he was tired. I thought work was hard. I thought marriage goes through phases. But I was wrong. Very, very wrong. The truth revealed itself the night I picked up his ringing phone and saw a message that would break any woman's soul. "She believes you, baby. Just give her 2 more weeks." 2 weeks. Exactly the time he told me the house wasn't mine. But he didn't know I wasn't the same Elena anymore. What he planned for me, I had already planned back for him. And when the truth reached that courtroom, Daniel would lose everything he thought he controlled. Including me. And the night everything changed. The night it all began, the house felt colder than usual. Not physically, no, it was something deeper, something that seeped into my bones like a warning. The kind of cold that whispers, your life is about to change forever. I didn't know it then, but every sound, every silence, and every small detail was preparing me for the moment that would shatter the last piece of innocence I had left. Daniel came home late again. That wasn't unusual anymore. He walked in the way he had been doing for months, quietly, casually, as if he wasn't stepping into a home but into a hotel room where he barely remembered the staff's faces. His keys clinked on the counter. His shoes shuffled across the wooden floor. He didn't call my name. He didn't even look around. I stood by the kitchen island, pretending to wipe the same already clean corner. I waited for him to acknowledge me. A simple hey. Or maybe even a tired smile. Something. Anything. But all I got was the soft vibration of his phone in his hand, and the small secretive smile that crossed his lips when he looked at it. That smile. That was the beginning. He didn't know I saw it. He didn't know it stabbed something inside me. He didn't know that in that moment, my heart whispered, something is wrong. "Dinner's in the oven," I finally said, my voice more fragile than I wished. "Already ate," he replied without looking up. "Long day." He nodded slowly. Long day had become his excuse for everything. Late nights, cold shoulders, unexplained absences, whispered phone calls. Long day. Long day. Long day. Every day seemed longer than the last. He walked past me, brushing my shoulder with the edge of his jacket. Not intentionally. Not lovingly. Just, carelessly. À gauche of the mani marié. For a moment, I stood frozen, listening to him move through the house we built together. The house I thought would be our forever. The floors creaked under his steps. The bedroom door opened. Closed. Silence swallowed everything again. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath, and walked to the living room. I sat on the couch, hugging my knees. I don't know how long I stayed like that, minutes, an hour, until I finally heard the shower running. That's when his phone buzzed on the table. And buzzed again. And again. À sharp, une invitée de curiosité pierced me. Who was texting him at 11:47 p.m. And why did he walk straight to the shower without checking? The screen lit up. One notification. Then another. Then another. And before I even made the decision consciously, my hand moved. My finger touched the phone. Turned it toward me. The device recognized his face ID too slowly, and then, the lock screen preview revealed the first line of a message. She still doesn't know? My lungs tightened. Another message appeared. Just 2 more weeks. You promised. A pulse pounded in my ear. My entire world narrowed to that glowing screen. My hands trembled, but I kept reading the previews. After that, she'll be out and everything will finally be ours. Ours? Out? Who? Me? I didn't need the full messages to understand. Sometimes the smallest sentence carries the heaviest truth. The shower suddenly stopped. My heart jumped to my throat. I quickly flipped the phone face down and stepped back. My breathing was uneven. Mig stung. I tried to steady myself, to look normal, to pretend nothing had just cracked inside me. Daniel walked out of the bathroom, hair wet, towel around his neck. He glanced at me briefly, as if catching me standing there was an inconvenience he didn't want to deal with. You're still up, he said. His casual tone felt like a slap.
Yeah, il managed, forcing a fin smile.
Couldn't sleep. He nodded, uninterested. I'm exhausted.
Tomorrow is gonna be busy.
I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him, busy with who? Busy planning what? I wanted to show him his own messages and ask why they felt like daggers. But I swallowed everything. Because I needed to know more. Because instinct told me, if I confronted him now, he'd bury the truth even deeper. So I simply whispered goodnight, and walked away with a heart that felt like shattered glass. I climbed into bed after he slept. His back was turned toward me, his breathing calm and even, as if he hadn't destroyed something inside me just hours earlier.
Il est awake, staring at the ceiling.
Questions swirled violently in my mind. Who was she? How long had this been happening? What exactly was the plan for 2 weeks? Time moved slowly, painfully. At some point, tears filled my eyes, not the loud kind, but the quiet ones that burn. The ones that come from betrayal, so deep you feel it in your bones. I didn't know how long I cried, but I knew one thing. This was not the man I married. This was not the life I built. And this was not going to end the way he thought. Morning eventually arrived, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like an aftermath. Daniel was already up, dressed, ready. He barely met my eyes as he drank his coffee. I'll be home late, he said. Of course he would. He grabbed his phone, glanced at the new messages, smirked, and headed toward the door. That's when he turned back for a brief second and casually dropped the sentence that would become the turning point of my entire life. Oh, and Elena, just so you know, he paused, slipped his hands into his pockets, and said with a coldness I'd never heard from him before, don't forget this house is not yours. Then he walked out.
Just like that.
As if he hadn't just pulled the floor out from under me.
The door clicked shut.
My knees almost buckled, but I grabbed the counter before I collapsed.
My breath shook. Tears blurred everything. But somewhere inside the chaos, something else woke up.
Not weakness. Not fear. A spark. A very small, but very powerful spark. The spark that whispers to a woman, get up.
You're not done.
I wiped my tears and stood straighter. If Daniel thought I was fragile, he was about to discover the part of me he never bothered to know. For 10 years, I loved him blindly. But now? Now I was going to see with my eyes wide open. And whatever he was planning for 2 weeks. I quietly decided this. 2 weeks was all the time I needed to. My story, my real story, began that morning. The morning I vowed that no matter what happened next, I would never let anyone take away what I built. And that decision was the first step toward the moment in court where Daniel would see me again. Not as the woman he betrayed, but as the woman he should have feared.
2. The secret she left behind.
I didn't leave the kitchen for almost an hour after Daniel walked out.
He stood there, fingers gripping the edge of the marble counter, trying to stop the trembling in my hand.
Betrayal didn't feel like the dramatic scenes you see in movies. It felt slow, suffocating, like you were drowning in air that used to be safe. But I knew one thing clearly now. I wasn't going to break. I was going to uncover the truth. I began by retracing everything that felt off over the past months. His late nights. His sudden interest in privacy. His new cologne, one I never bought for him. His unusual business trips. His phone always face down on the table. So many signs. Signs I ignored because I loved him. But now, love wasn't my priority. Truth was. I moved into the bedroom and opened the closet, his side first. Nothing looked suspicious at a glance, but one detail struck me: the travel suitcase was still lying under the bed half open. He never left things messy. Daniel was incredibly organized, almost obsessively. So why was his suitcase sitting there for days, half-packed? I knelt beside it and gently unzipped it. Inside, there were clothes. Not unusual. Shoes.
Normal.
But then my hand brushed something unfamiliar, something smooth, silky.
He pulled it out.
A red dress. Not mine. Not even close to my size.
My briskokt.
I stared at the fabric in my hands. It was expensive, elegant, the kind of dress a man doesn't buy for a stranger, unless that stranger means something. Anger burned in my chest like wildfire. Not loud, not explosive, quiet, controlled.
Dangereux.
I folded the dress and placed it back inside carefully. I wasn't going to confront him yet.
Not until he knew everything.
Not until I had the full picture. Because I had learned one thing already.
Daniel wasn't dealing with a soft Elena anymore.
I stood up and closed the suitcase. And as I did, something else caught my eye, something I almost missed. A folder. Thin black, tucked so neatly behind his suits that it blended into the shadows. Daniel loved folders. He kept all his business documents organized. But this one was hidden. I hesitated. Then I pulled it out. Inside, there were legal papers, contracts, agreements, bank statements, and then a document that made my entire body freeze. Property transfer agreement. I scanned down the page, my heart pounding harder with every word. Daniel was planning to transfer the ownership of the house. My house. Our house. But not to me. Not even to himself.
To another woman.
My knees felt weak, but I kept reading. There was no name on the recipient line yet, just a blank space. But that almost made it worse. It meant he was waiting for the right moment, or the right woman. The woman who texted him last night.
The woman from the red dress.
My chest tightened, tears pricking my eyes, but I forced myself not to cry. Crying wouldn't help.
Crying wouldn't protect what he built.
I slid the documents back into the folder and placed everything exactly the way it was. If Daniel suspected even for a second that I knew what he was planning, he would change the plan. I needed him to think I was still blind. That was my biggest weapon now. I took a deep breath, wiped my face, and made myself a promise. Whatever he thinks is happening, I'll stay one step ahead. But I wasn't alone. Not anymore. Because hours later, when I sat quietly on the couch, replaying every moment of last night in my mind, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. I almost ignored it, until I saw the words. I know what Daniel is planning.
If you want the truth, meet me.
My heart slammed against my ribs. Who was this? A trap? A warning? A mistake? But then another message popped up. I was the woman he hurt before you. And he will do the same to her after you. You need to know everything.
He stared at the screen, my pulse racing.
Part of me wanted to throw the phone away. Part of me wanted to drive straight to wherever she was. But reality pressed down on me like a hand around my throat. Daniel had done this before. The thought made my stomach twist painfully. I leaned back on the couch, covering my mouth with my hand, trying to breathe. My marriage.
My life. My sacrifice.
Had I been living with a man who collected wives like trophies? Who discarded them when he found someone newer, younger, more exciting?
The phone buzzed again. À location pain. A coffee shop downtown.
Time, 4 p.m. Courage began to bloom inside me like a dark flower.
He tipped back, et l'elbider.
I stood up, my legs still shaky but my resolve firm. I had 2 hours to prepare, not for a confrontation, but for answers. Real answers. The kind Daniel would never willingly give me. I dressed simply, tying my hair back, looking at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were swollen from crying, but something new flickered inside them. Strength.
Détermination.
A fire I didn't recognize. I grabbed my purse, walked outside, and locked the door behind me. The same door Daniel thought he could take away from me. He had no idea I was already fighting for it. The drive to the coffee shop felt longer than it should have. Every traffic light turned red. Every passing car felt like it was staring at me, judging me, whispering, "She doesn't know the full story yet." When I finally parked, I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The aroma of roasted coffee beans clouded the air. People chatted quietly at tables. It was normal, too normal for a moment that felt like the world was tilting beneath my feet. And then I saw her. A woman sitting in the corner, hands wrapped around a mug, staring out the window as if remembering a past she couldn't escape. She looked up slowly, and our eyes met. She stood. "Are you Elena?" she asked softly. I nodded.
She exhaled shakily. My name is Claire.
Claire.
The woman Daniel dated before me?
The one he told me was too dramatic and emotionally unstable? The one he said he left because she wasn't ready for a real future? I suddenly felt sick. She gestured for me to sit. "I know you're confused," Claire began, voice fragile but steady. "But you're not the first woman he's done this to."
A cold shiver branched across my skin. "I'm sorry," he whispered.
"I didn't know."
Claire shook her head slowly.
"You weren't meant to." She reached into her purse and slid a small envelope across the table. "This," she said, "is what he did to me. And what he's planning to do to you." My fingers hesitated before touching the envelope, because deep down I knew. The moment I opened it, there would be no turning back. Claire looked at me with eyes full of sympathy. "He always gives them 2 weeks," she whispered. "Always." My blood ran cold. 2 weeks. Exactly what the messages said. Claire leaned forward, voice trembling. "And Elena, whatever you do, don't let him finish the plan." My throat tightened. "Why?" I whispered. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered 5 words that changed everything. "Because he destroys every woman completely." 3. The truth inside the envelope. For a long moment, I just stared at the small envelope resting on the cafe table between Claire and me. It was light, too light to hold anything that could shake a person's life. But somehow, I knew that the truth inside it would be heavier than anything I'd ever carried. Claire watched me with eyes that knew pain too well. Eyes that had already lived the story I was only beginning to uncover. The cafe hummed quietly around us, cups clinking, conversations murmuring, soft music playing, but all of it faded into a background blur. My world had narrowed to this one envelope. This one moment. With slow, shaky hands, I opened it. Inside were photographs. Printed, glossy, undeniable. The first was a picture of Daniel and Claire years ago, standing outside what looked like a real estate office. He had his arm around her. They were smiling.
A couple in love.
But I wasn't looking at their faces. I was looking at the sold sign behind them. The same real estate agency that sold our house years later. My stomach twisted. The next photo showed Claire inside a house, not ours, but a similar one. New, furnished, clean. A place she probably thought she and Daniel would build a future in. And then, the third photo hit me the hardest. It showed Claire standing outside, crying, suitcase by her feet. Locked out. The door behind her shut. Coldly. Permanently. My hands shook, the edges of the photos cutting lightly into my skin as I turned the next one. It was a scanned document. A property ownership transfer.
The buyer's name, Daniel Carter, the transfer recipient, Claire Bennett.
But under it, in bold red ink, stamped diagonally across the page, was a single word. Void. My chest tightened painfully. I looked up at Claire. She swallowed. "That was supposed to be my house," she said quietly. "He spent months making me believe we were building a future. He said he wanted everything in my name because he trusted me."
Her voice cracked.
I didn't know he was planning to take everything back the moment I signed. I blinked rapidly, struggling to breathe. "But why? What did he want from you?" She let out a small, bitter laugh. "Control. Money. Power. And the thrill of it, I think. Daniel loves 2 things, feeling smarter than everyone else, and never getting caught."
I felt a chill crawl up my spine.
Claire leaned back, her fingers tightening around her mug. When I finally realized what was happening, it was too late. He already had everything.
my songs, my trust, my time, my woman.
She paused. He kicked me out 2 days before the transfer was finalized. Then he claimed I abandoned the property, which voided the agreement. My jaw dropped. He planned it, I whispered. Every step, she said. And he's doing the exact same thing to you. I closed my eyes as anger burned behind them, sharp and blinding. My hands curled into fists around the envelope. He told me, I started, voice trembling, he told me the house isn't mine. Claire nodded sadly. That's the first warning. The next step is manipulation. He'll push you emotionally, wear you down, make you feel unstable, then force you to leave by making life unbearable.
My besieged.
He wants me to walk out, I whispered. Yes, she said. Because the moment you leave willingly, even temporarily, he'll use that as legal grounds to remove you permanently. A wave of nausea rolled through me. I pushed the photos aside as if touching them burned. How did you get out? I asked, my voice barely audible. Claire looked down at her hands. I didn't. Not really. I left the state. Started over with nothing. But I promised myself that if I ever found out he was doing it again, I would warn the next woman. Her eyes lifted to mine. That woman is you, Elena. Something inside me cracked, not in weakness, but in awakening. Like an old, rusted lock finally snapping open. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I simply felt a stillness, sharp, cold, powerful. The stillness that comes right before a storm. I gathered the photographs and documents, slid them back into the envelope, and held it tightly. Why didn't you go to the police? I finally asked. She shook her head slowly. Everything he did was technically legal. Immoral, manipulative, cruel, but legal. He used loopholes. He used charm. And he used women who trusted him. I swallowed hard. He won't get away with it again. She searched my eyes. Do you have a plan? No, I said honestly. Not yet. But you will, she whispered. I nodded. Because she was right. I would. I had to. We sat in silence for a while, each of us lost in thoughts of what Daniel had done, and what he was still doing. Outside the window, people passed by with coffee cups and winter coats, living their ordinary lives, unaware that 2 women inside this cafe were quietly plotting against a man who had hurt them both. Eventually, Claire reached across the table and touched my hand. You're stronger than I was, she said softly. You see the truth earlier than I did.
I met her eyes.
You survived. That's strength.
A small, grateful smile tugged at her lips.
Be careful, she warned. He's not stupid. He'll sense the smallest change in your behavior. I know. And Elena, her voice wavered. Whatever you do, don't let him know you met me.
A chill ran through me.
I won't. We exchanged numbers, just in case. Then I stood, the envelope clutched tightly in my hands. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me, Claire replied. Just finish what I couldn't. I nodded and walked out of the cafe. The cold air hit me instantly, sharp and biting, but it felt grounding.
Real.
My breath came out in white puffs as I walked toward my car, each step heavier than the last. Inside the car, I sat still for a long time, gripping the steering wheel.
The envelope lay on the passenger seat like a silent witness to everything he now knew.
Daniel wasn't just unfaithful. He wasn't just manipulative. He was dangerous. But he had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated me. I drove home slowly, my mind racing through every memory, every moment, every red flag I ignored. I remembered the way he silenced my concerns, the way he made me feel dramatic, emotional, unreasonable. He wasn't doing it by accident. He was conditioning me. By the time I reached our street, something inside me had changed. I wasn't walking back into that house as the same woman who left it hours earlier. I parked the car, stepped out, and stood in front of the house. My house. Even if legally, technically, temporarily, it wasn't in my name. It was mine in a way Daniel could never understand. Because I didn't just live here. I built this life. I built this marriage. I built him into the man he pretended to be. But now? Now he would see the woman he tried to destroy, become the woman who would destroy his lies. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and whispered to myself, Daniel has no idea what's coming. And he didn't. Not even close. For, the night that changed everything. The house felt colder than usual, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the tension growing inside them. I had spent the entire afternoon pacing across the wooden floor, listening to the ticking clock on the far wall that sounded louder with every passing second. The storm outside had grown violent, rain hammered against the windows, and thunder rolled like a warning from the heavens. But even the raging weather couldn't drown out the sound of my own heartbeat. I knew tonight something was going to happen.
I could feel it deep inside my bones, like an invisible pressure squeezing the air out of my chest.
By 8 p.m., Adam still hadn't come home. That wasn't unusual anymore. Lately, he found every excuse to stay out late. Meetings, dinners, projects, traffic. According to his stories, he was suddenly the busiest man in the country. But I wasn't naive. His schedule changed at the exact same time his attitude toward me changed. His gentleness faded. His patience evaporated. His words sharpened. And his eyes, once soft and full of warmth, felt like cold glass sliding past me without interest. I kept trying to shake off the thoughts crowding my mind, but they returned each time stronger. Was it me? Had I changed so much after marriage? Or had he simply stopped caring, stopped trying, stopped loving? I didn't know the answer. All I knew was that something was slipping through my fingers, and if I let it fall completely, there would be no way to repair it again. At 9:13 p.m., the sound of keys at the front door finally broke the silence. My stomach twisted. I turned toward the hallway just as the door opened, and Adam stepped in, shaking off the rain from his jacket. He looked exhausted, but not the kind of exhaustion that comes from work, the kind that comes from carrying a secret for too long. You're late, I said quietly. He didn't look at me. I told you, busy day. I heard the lie in his tone instantly. It was becoming his second language lately. I waited dinner for you, I added, my voice soft but trembling. He sighed, annoyed. You don't have to wait.
It whenever you want.
But that wasn't the point. Waiting was a gesture.
A sign of care. A sign of partnership.
A sign of marriage. And he didn't even bother to pretend he recognized it anymore. He walked past me, but I stepped in front of him, blocking his path. We need to talk. He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, but not with love, tired with frustration. About what now? Now.
The word stabbed me.
As if talking to me was a burden he had to endure.
About US, he whispered.
He exhaled slowly and walked into the living room, tossing his bag on the couch.
What about US?
Adam, are you hiding something? He froze. His shoulders tensed, and for a moment I saw something flicker across his face, fear maybe or guilt. But just as quickly, he forced it away and turned toward me with cold calmness. Why would you even ask that? Because you're not the same, I said. My throat tightened.
You don't talk to me. You don't look at me. You leave early. You come home late.
And every day you're further away from me than the day before. He didn't reply. He just stared at me, expression unreadable.
He stepped closer. I'm your wife, Adam. If something is wrong, tell me.
The air between us felt heavy, thick enough to suffocate. Finally, he spoke.
You want honesty.
His voice turned harsh.
Fine.
Let's be honest.
I breast myself.
This house, he said slowly, is not yours. The world stopped spinning. My ears rang. My vision blurred around the edges.
What did you say?
I whispered. He repeated it, louder this time. This house is not yours. It was never yours. You're here because I let you be here, not because you have any right to it. His words were knives. Sharp. Precise. Killing parts of me with each syllable. I've worked for everything we have, I choked out. I've stood by you, through every struggle, every setback. He cut me off. And? What does that change? Your name is not on anything. Not the deed. Not the accounts. Not the business. Nothing. Tears welled in my eyes. Is that how little I mean to you? He gave a bitter laugh. Stop being dramatic. You wanted honesty, there it is. I stared at him, unable to breathe, unable to move. I felt like the ground beneath my feet had opened and swallowed me whole. I don't understand, my voice cracked. Why would you say something like that? Why now? Because it's time you knew your place. My knees nearly gave out. My place. Not as a partner. Not as a wife. Not as an equal. As a guest. A burden.
A temporary occupant.
Something inside me broke so loudly I almost heard it. But before I could respond, the doorbell rang suddenly, loud and urgent.
Adam filinched.
His eyes widened. He looked scared. My heart dropped. Who is that? He didn't answer, but the panic in his expression said enough. The bell rang again, faster, almost impatient. I stepped toward the door, but he grabbed my arm. Don't.
Il pulled away.
Why? Who is it? He swallowed hard. Just, let me handle it. The fear in his voice was new.
Unfamiliar.
Terrifying. I shook off his hand and walked to the door anyway. I felt an instinct, something deep, sharp, and unexplainable, telling me that whatever was behind this door was connected to everything he'd been hiding. I slowly opened it. My blood turned to ice.
A woman stood on the doorstep, soaked from the rain, mascara running down her cheek, eyes full of fury and desperation.
She was around my age, maybe younger. And she looked at me as if she knew me, or worse, as if she hated me. Then she spoke the words that shattered what was left of my world.
So you're the wife.
My entire body went numb.
Behind me, I heard Adam whisper à cœur under his breath.
The woman glared past me at him. Tell her. Or I will. My heart slammed against my ribs. Tell me what? Neither of them spoke.
The rain pour darder.
The thunder roared. The silence threatened to break me. What are you hiding from me, Adam? I screamed. He closed his eyes. The woman answered for him.
He promised he would leave you.
He promised you were temporary. And he promised, this house would be mine.
The world shattered into pieces. The storm outside had nothing on the storm inside me now.
I could barely breathe as the truth settled like poison into my veins. He wasn't just drifting away. He wasn't just distant. He was building a life without me, with someone else. And tonight, this storm, this confession, this stranger standing in our doorway. Tonight was the night everything changed forever. 5. The collapse before the storm. The rain had turned into a violent curtain outside, making it impossible to see anything beyond the doorstep. Thunder cracked like the sky itself was tearing open, but none of it was louder than the silence that followed the woman's words. My breath caught in my throat as the storm outside bled into the storm within me. I felt everything, shock, betrayal, humiliation, surging through my chest like a wave determined to drown whatever was left of me. The woman's voice echoed again, colder, sharper. You didn't tell her, did you? Adam looked like a man cornered by his own demons, unable to move, unable to speak. I turned to him, waiting for denial, for an explanation, for anything that could make sense of the madness unfolding. But his silence was its own confession. My voice trembled.
Adam, tell-me she's liant.
He closed his eyes, shoulders sagging, not with remorse, but with exhaustion. As if he was tired of carrying the truth. The woman scoffed and stepped inside the house without invitation, dripping water on the wooden floor, her heels clacking sharply. He won't say anything. He never does. He lets others clean up his mess while he stands there pretending to be the victim. I stepped back as she moved closer, the scent of rain and cheap perfume filling the air between us. Who are you? I demanded, my voice barely holding together. She stared straight into my eyes. I'm the woman he told he loved. The woman he promised a future. The woman he said, she pointed at the floor beneath her feet, would have this house. My heart clenched so hard I thought it would break apart inside me. Adam finally spoke, voice shaky. Enough, Maya. So now she had a name. Maya. He said her name the way he once said mine, soft, exhausted, pleading. The floor moved beneath me. Or maybe it was my body threatening to collapse.
He gripped the back of the couch to steady myself.
Maya, I repeated, the name burning on my tongue. How long? Neither of them answered. How long? I screamed, my voice cracking like lightning. Maya folded her arms. 1 year. 1 year. 12 months. 365 days. While I had been cooking dinner, folding laundry, waiting at the window for him to come home, loving him, he had been building a secret world with her. I can explain, Adam finally muttered. I laughed. A hollow, broken sound. Explain? What explanation could possibly make this sane? He ran a hand through his hair. It wasn't supposed to get this far. Maya snapped. Don't act like you didn't lead me on. You told me I was your future. You said you were trapped. Trapped. The word punched the air out of my lungs. Trapped, with me. Maya turned toward me, eyes fierce. He said you were impossible to live with. That you were cold. That you didn't support him. That you had no ambition. That you... Stop. Adam shouted. But her words had already done damage. Deep, irreversible damage. I staggered backward, holding my chest as if trying to keep the shattered pieces of myself from falling. That's not true, Adam muttered, unable to look me in the eye. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Pain shot through me like lightning. You said them. You let her believe them. He swallowed hard. I didn't know how to end things. Maya scoffed. You didn't want to end things. I stared at him, struggling to breathe. You told her I was temporary? He shut his eyes. That was my answer. My world, our marriage, our memories, our promises, crumbled in my chest like fragile glass under weight. I turned to Maya, my voice barely audible. Why are you here? Her jaw tightened. Because he blocked me. Because he stopped answering my calls. Because he told me he needed space. And I knew exactly what that meant. He wanted to go back to you. She glared at him again. So I came to get the truth. I came to end this once and for all. Adam shot her a warning look. You shouldn't have come. And what? She snapped.
Let you disappear?
Let you play both sides until you decide which woman gives you less trouble. Their voices became distant, like echoes in a long tunnel, because all I could hear was a single thought looping through my mind. He was choosing between us. He was deciding who to keep, who to love, who to betray. Maya's voice broke through my haze. Tell her, Adam. Tell her what you told me. Tell her you were leaving. My stomach twisted violently. Leaving. I whispered. Adam's expression fell apart. I considered it, but. I stepped closer, voice shaking with rage. But what? His next words hit like a blade. I didn't think you'd handle it well. I laughed bitterly. So instead, you humiliated me, lied to me, replaced me, and planned to walk out when it was convenient for you. Maya's voice softened unexpectedly. He showed me the listings, houses he wanted us to look at. He talked about marriage. He talked about children. He talked about a future. Each word was another cut. Adam stared at the floor, shoulders collapsing inward. I took a step back, tears flooding my eyes. Why?
Adam.
Why? He looked up, and for a moment I saw something close to fear. Because I felt alive with her. Because she made me feel like a man again. Because you didn't need me anymore. His words struck something dark inside me. I loved you, I whispered. And you turned that into a crime. The room went quiet. Silent. Except for the thunder and my shattering heart. Then Maya pulled something from her bag, a stack of printed messages, photos, hotel receipts. She threw them on the coffee table, pages scattering like fallen leaves. Here, she said coldly. Read what your husband promised me. Adam lunged forward. Maya, stop. No, she hissed. She deserves to know. I stared at the evidence, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. Whispers. Lies. Plans. Excuses. Every page a betrayal. Every photograph a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I stepped back again. My back hit the wall. And slowly, painfully, I slid down until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, tears streaming silently. Adam took a step toward me. Listen, please. I didn't mean. Don't, I whispered. Don't come near me. Maya looked at me with an expression I didn't expect, pity. Maybe even regret. I didn't know he was this spineless, she said softly. I thought he loved me. I thought he was going to leave you. I thought. She stopped, her voice breaking. Even she was heartbroken. Adam had destroyed 2 women at once, and yet somehow, he still stood there acting like the victim. Maya wiped her cheeks angrily. I'm done. With both of you. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Silence followed. Heavy. Terrifying. Final. Adam stood across the room, his face pale, his breathing uneven. I'm sorry, he whispered. I looked at him slowly, my husband, the man I once trusted with my entire soul, and for the first time, I felt absolutely nothing for him. No love. No hate. Nothing. A hollow ache settled inside me, the kind that comes right before a storm destroys everything in its path. You ended our marriage tonight, I said quietly. He shook his head desperately. No. No, I can fix this. You can't fix a dead thing, Adam. He froze. The finality in my voice hit him harder than any slap could have. I stood up slowly, steadying myself. My legs trembled, but I refused to fall again. Not tonight. Not because of him. Leave, I said. His eyes widened. What? Leave, I repeated, stronger this time. Get out. The storm outside roared as if responding to my command. Adam took a hesitant step forward. This is my house. Not anymore, I whispered. Not after what you did. Tonight, I take back my dignity, and you can take your lies with you. The house remained silent, waiting for his next move. He stared at me, guilty, desperate, afraid, and finally without another word he stepped back, grabbed his keys, and walked out into the storm. The door closed behind him with a soft, devastating click. And I collapsed to the floor again, not broken, but awakening. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning.
See, the morning after the breakdown.
The storm raged through the night, but by dawn, the world outside had grown strangely quiet. A thin golden light seeped through the curtains, casting long shadows across the living room, the same room where my life had shattered just hours earlier. The silence felt unfamiliar, stretching across the house like a fragile thread that could snap at any moment. My eyes burned from crying, my throat ached, and my body felt hollow, as if every ounce of strength had drained from me and seeped into the floor. I didn't remember falling asleep. One moment I had been sitting on the cold floor, staring at the door Adam walked out of, and the next moment I awoke curled into myself on the couch, my hands clenched around a throw pillow like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. For a long time, I simply sat there breathing, or trying to. The air felt thick, and every breath made my chest throb with fresh pain. My mind replayed the night in broken fragments, the knock on the door, Maya's face twisted with betrayal, Adam's silence, the receipts scattered like confessions, and his final pitiful "I can fix this." It all washed over me in waves that left me shaking. Eventually, I stood up. My legs wobbled beneath me, but I forced them to hold. The house looked different in the daylight, emptier, unfamiliar. As if Adam had taken more than himself when he left, he had taken the warmth, the meaning, the illusion of safety. I walked into the kitchen, mechanically filling a glass of water. My reflection in the microwave door startled me, puffy eyes, tangled hair, a face drained of color. I looked like someone who had lived through a war. In a way, I had. My phone buzzed suddenly, slicing through the silence. My heart jumped in fear. I wasn't ready to hear his voice, to read his apologies, to face the possibility that part of me still wanted him to fight for what he broke. But the message wasn't from Adam. It was from my older sister, Leah. Good morning. Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? I stared at the screen for almost a full minute, unsure whether to spill everything or hide it inside myself until it turned toxic. But hiding was how I had ended up here, quiet, loyal, blind. Finally, with trembling fingers, I typed, "No. Everything is not okay." Her reply came instantly. "I'm coming." No questions.
No hesitación.
And that was enough to make my chest loosen just a little. I sat down at the table, clutching the glass of water between my hands, letting the cold seep into my skin. Memories began replaying, not of the fight, not of Maya, but of small things Adam had done in the past that I'd ignored, the sudden need for privacy, the late nights, the defensiveness, the lies about who he was texting. I had trained myself to trust him so fully that even when everything pointed to the truth, I buried it. My love for him had been so consuming it had blinded me. A soft knock at the door startled me. For a second, panic shot through me. Was it him? Was it Maya? Was another lie waiting to collapse into my world? But when I opened the door, it was Leah, hair in a messy bun, wearing oversized sweatpants, worry etched across her face. The moment she saw me, her expression broke. "Oh honey," she whispered, and pulled me into her arms. And for the first time since last night, I let myself cry, loud, shaking, uncontrollable. She held me tightly, her hand stroking my back. "You're safe. I'm here. Whatever happened, I've got you." Her voice cracked the shell I had built around myself. I told her everything. Every detail. Every wound. Every betrayal. Her face hardened with fury, but she didn't interrupt. When I finished, she sat beside me on the couch, holding both my hands in hers. "You listen to me," she said, eyes blazing with protective fire. "He didn't break you. He exposed himself. Men like him don't deserve the loyalty of women like you."
He whipped my eyes.
"I don't know what to do." "That's okay," she replied gently. "You don't have to know today. Today you breathe. Tomorrow, we figure out the rest." Her calm steadiness was exactly what I needed, like a warm blanket thrown over a freezing body. Later, she began helping me pick up the papers Maya scattered the night before. Each page was a reminder of the double life Adam had been living, but instead of collapsing, I found myself growing strangely numb. Numbness wasn't healing, but it was the first step toward it. I was placing the final paper on the table when another knock came, this one louder. Leah's brows knitted. "If it's him, I swear." She didn't get to finish. Because when I opened the door, it wasn't Adam. It was his mother. A woman who loved the idea of her son more than the truth of him. She walked in without waiting for an invitation, her eyes scanning the living room as if she owned it. "Your husband called me last night," she announced sharply. "He said you threw him out. What happened?"
I stared at her, stunned.
"What happened?" "He cheated. He lied." "You must have misunderstood," she cut in, waving a dismissive hand. Leah's jaw dropped. "Are you serious? Your son destroyed her." His mother raised her chin. "Whatever he did, he's still her husband. And you don't throw your husband out of his own home." The phrase "his home" hit me like a slap. I felt my knees weaken, but Leah stepped protectively in front of me. "You need to leave. Right now." But Adam's mother ignored her. She turned toward me, voice firm. "You should have handled this privately. Now you've embarrassed yourself, him, and this family." Leah exploded. "Your son is the embarrassment. He cheated. He lied. He—" "Enough," she snapped. "You will not speak about him like that." I swallowed hard. "Mrs. Hale, your son has been having an affair. For a year." "I don't believe that."
"Do you need proof?"
I said, voice cracking. "Because it's right there on the table." She looked, her expression tightening as she saw the stack of messages and receipts. For a moment, just a moment, her face faltered. But then she straightened, cold once again. "Whatever trouble he got himself into, you need to forgive him. A marriage is built on patience, not pride."
Pride.
She called everything I had endured pride. My hands shook, but I lifted my chin. "A marriage is built on trust. And he broke it." She raised her eyebrows. "Then fix it." "I won't," I whispered, voice steadying with new strength. Her lips tightened. She opened her mouth to argue. But she stopped when she heard a car door slam outside. We all turned toward the window. It was Adam. He was back. Walking up the driveway, drenched in shame and desperation. Leah cursed under her breath. His mother rushed to the door like reinforcements had arrived. But I just stood there. Frozen. Still. Calm in a way I didn't recognize in myself. Adam's shadow appeared at the door's glass panel before his mother opened it. He looked at me. And I looked at him. This was the moment. The turning point. The confrontation that would change everything. But instead of fear, I felt something new rising inside me. Strength. Something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I wasn't the same woman he had left in pieces last night. And he was about to realize that.
7. The confrontation that shook the walls.
The moment Adam stepped through the doorway, the air in the house tightened. It felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Water dripped from his hair and jacket, forming small dark circles on the wooden floor. His eyes, swollen and fatigued, wandered from me to Leah to his mother standing beside him like an iron shield. But I didn't move. I didn't speak. I simply stood there, still as stone, watching a man who used to feel like home now look like a stranger trespassing in my life. Adam swallowed hard. Can we talk? Leah crossed her arms protectively. She has nothing to say to you. His mother shot her a sharp look. This is between husband and wife. Then why are you here? Leah snapped. The tension crackled between them like electricity. But I raised my hand gently. It's okay, Leah. She glanced back at me, eyes full of fire, but she stepped aside. I turned to Adam, keeping my voice steady.
C'est what were you came to say?
He took a shaky breath.
I'm sorry.
I know sorry isn't enough, but I don't know what else to say. Last night was the biggest mistake of my life. I stared at him silently. I had no intention of making this easy for him. His gaze shifted downward, guilt pooling in his expression. I panicked. I lost control. And Maya coming here, that wasn't supposed to happen. I ended things with her, I swear. His mother nodded as if his confession was some kind of noble act. But the numbness inside me had finally begun to thaw into something sharper. Adam, I said softly, you didn't make one mistake. You made thousands. Every lie you told was a mistake. Every night you chose someone else was a mistake. Every promise you broke was a mistake. I know, he whispered. I know. But what hurts most, I continued, voice trembling but steady, is that you didn't come home last night because you wanted to fix anything. You came home because you were cornered. He flinched. His mother stepped forward. He came home because this is where he belongs. I looked at her slowly. No, Mrs. Hale. He came home because it was raining. She went quiet. And for the first time, Adam looked ashamed in front of her. I stepped closer, not to comfort him, but to face him clearly. You told her I was temporary. His voice cracked. I didn't mean it. I was angry. You told her you loved her. He shut his eyes tightly. You told her this house would belong to her. His mother gasped softly, Adam. I lifted my hand. Let him talk. Adam opened his eyes again, and for a moment there was a glimmer of who he used to be. But a glimmer didn't undo a year of betrayal. I thought I wasn't enough for you anymore, he whispered. I felt small next to you. Useless. My jaw loosened. So instead of talking to me, you went to someone who made you feel stronger? He looked down. Yes. And that made you feel like a man again? I asked bitterly. He hesitated. At the time, yes. The way he said it broke something inside me, something that should have shattered the night before, but didn't finish breaking until now. Leah stepped between us. You don't deserve to breathe the same air as her. But I gently moved her aside again. Let him finish. Adam ran a trembling hand over his face. I didn't know how to stop. I felt trapped between the guilt of hurting you and the fear of hurting her. I kept hoping things would fix themselves. I stared at him in disbelief.
People fix windows, Adam.
They don't fix marriages by ignoring the cracks. He looked like the words physically hit him. You destroyed everything we built, I said quietly. Everything. He reached out a hand, desperate.
Just, give me one chance. Let me fix it.
Let me prove to you. I stepped back immediately, refusing his touch.
You don't get to ask me for a chance, he whispered.
Not after you took mine away. His lips trembled. I love you. The words that once felt like lifelines now sounded like poison. Leah scoffed.
You loved two women at once?
Coward. His mother glared.
Stay out of this. No, Lia shot back.
Someone needs to say aloud what your son really is.
Il reste de maillant again.
Enough. They both fell silent. I looked directly into Adam's eyes.
Did you love her?
He froze. His mother whispered, "Don't answer that." Lia hissed, "Answer her."
Adam's voice cracked open.
I thought I did. There it was.
The truth. Sharp. Final. Brutal.
My legs trembled, but I stayed standing. My voice was almost a whisper. "Then why are you here?" He blinked rapidly, tears threatening. Because when I woke up this morning, I realized something. When she left, I felt guilt. But when you told me to leave, it felt like my world ended. My breath shook, but not out of sympathy, out of disbelief. He continued desperately. "I know I ruined everything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I can't lose you. I can't." "You already did." The silence that followed was suffocating. He took a step forward.
Please, don't say that.
I didn't say it, I replied softly. You did.
The moment you gave another woman, the future you promised me.
He dropped to his knees.
Just like that.
Right in front of all of us. His mother gasped. Lia covered her mouth. And I stood rooted to the floor, staring at the man who once swore he would never hurt me, now crying on the same floor he destroyed us on. I'm begging you, he whispered.
Don't let this be the end.
I felt something inside me shift, not anger, not grief, but clarity. Adam, I said gently, this is not the end. He looked up, hope filling his eyes. This is the beginning, I finished.
Just not the one you think.
His face fell apart. I continued, stronger now, you will face consequences.
You will face truth.
You will face me, in court. His mother choked. Court. Lia smiled through gritted teeth. Now we're talking. Adam's face went pale.
Please, don't do this.
But the strength that had been growing inside me since the moment he walked out last night finally settled into its rightful place. I am done being the woman you underestimate, I said. Now I will be the woman you regret losing. He covered his face with his hands, sobbing. His mother whispered frantically, we can fix this.
But he shook my head.
No, Mrs. Hale. You can try to save your son. But you cannot save this marriage. And with those words I walked away from them, past the tears, past the guilt, past the remains of what used to be. I didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it.
8. The courtroom silence before the storm.
The morning of the hearing arrived with a strange heavy stillness, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something irreversible to happen. I woke up earlier than usual, not because of an alarm, but because sleep had abandoned me long before dawn. The sky outside was still dim, a pale gray that bled slowly into the horizon, and for a moment, I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing and everything at once.
My heart wasn't racing, no.
It was beating in a painfully slow, calm rhythm, like it had already accepted that today would rewrite the story of my life, whether I was ready or not. I got dressed with deliberate care. Every movement felt symbolic. The soft navy blouse I wore, the simple earrings, the light makeup, it wasn't to impress anyone. It was armor. Not aggressive, not loud, quiet, dignified, powerful in its restraint. I looked at myself in the mirror, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't see a broken woman. I saw someone who had survived storms without losing her softness.
Today, he whispered to my reflection, you walk in for yourself.
No one else.
A strange calm washed over me.
The ride to court. The car ride felt like floating through fog. Buildings passed by in a blur, people moved like shadows, and the city sounds seemed muted. My lawyer, sitting beside me, glanced over a few times, maybe trying to read my expression. You don't have to prepare for anything dramatic, she finally said.
Just tell the truth.
The truth is already strong enough. I nodded. Words felt unnecessary. Inside, however, emotions churned, anger, hurt, exhaustion, and something new, something dangerous, clarity. Entering the court hall. When I stepped into the court building, the air hit me like a wave. Cold, sterile, buzzing with voices and footsteps and echoes of countless battles fought before mine. People moved through the corridors with grim determination. Some whispered urgently, some prayed quietly, and some just stared into the distance, lost in their own wars. I held my file tightly, feeling the rough edges of the papers biting into my palm.
It grunded me.
As we approached the courtroom, my breath caught. He was there. My husband, or the man who used to be my husband, stood near the doorway, leaning against the wall. He wasn't dressed arrogantly today.
No crispe suis.
No expensive watch. Just a simple shirt, slightly wrinkled, like he had slept in it. His hair was uncombed, his face unshaved, and his eyes, those confident, cold eyes that once looked at me without hesitation, were now swollen and restless. For a second, our eyes met. There was no storm, no scene, no words.
Juste affliqué, of shock?
Guilt? Fear? I couldn't tell. But he was the one who looked away first. The walk past him. I walked past him without slowing.
Every step felt like stepping out of the past.
I didn't glare, didn't speak, didn't acknowledge his presence beyond that first, split-second glance. But I felt his gaze following me like a shadow he couldn't escape. I could almost hear the silent words he wanted to say but didn't dare to speak in the hallway. Please, listen, I didn't mean it. But none of that mattered today.
Inside the courtroom.
The courtroom was colder than the hallway. The wooden benches were polished but worn, carrying the weight of countless stories. I sat near the front, hands folded on my lap, breathing slowly and deeply. My lawyer whispered, he might try to talk. Ignore him unless it's official. I know, I said. And then finally he entered. This time, he didn't swagger in. He didn't carry that tedious confidence, the one that had once wrapped around him like an invisible cloak. Instead, he walked slowly, cautiously, like a man approaching a battlefield he no longer believed he could win. He sat on the opposite side, but he kept stealing glances.
Unsteady ones.
Nervous ones. And I didn't look back. Not even once.
The unexpected shift.
The judge arrived, the room rose, the hearing began. Everything felt procedural, mechanical, predictable. Then it happened. My husband was asked to speak. He stood, looking stiff and uncomfortable. He cleared his throat once, twice, like the words were stuck. Your Honor, he began, but his voice cracked. He tried again. Your Honor, I. A long pause followed.
A suffocating one.
He looked at me. Not around me. Not past me. At me. And the world seemed to freeze. His eyes widened, and something in him broke. I saw it, sharp, sudden, undeniable. His shoulders collapsed slightly, his breath hitched, and every emotion he had buried surged to the surface. He wasn't looking at an enemy. He wasn't looking at someone he wanted to defeat. He was looking at the consequences of his own cruelty. And he wasn't prepared for how strong those consequences looked. The moment no one expected. Then, in front of everyone, in that silent courtroom filled with people who expected a routine hearing, he stepped away from his table, crossed the small space toward the front, and in a shocking, breath-stealing moment, he dropped to his knees. Right there. Right before me. Gasps erupted around the room. The judge leaned forward sharply. My lawyer blinked in disbelief. But he didn't care. He didn't care about dignity. He didn't care about the dozens of eyes watching. His voice broke as he whispered, not loudly, not dramatically, just painfully, humanly.
Please, don't do this. Don't leave me like this.
He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame me, or twist the truth, or wear that mask he'd clung to for so long. He simply surrendered. Because guilt doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives on trembling knees. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anger. I felt free. The shock that followed. The bailiff took a step forward. The judge sternly ordered him to stand up. My husband stumbled to his feet, still shaking, wiping tears he probably never imagined he'd shed in public. The entire courtroom buzzed with whispers, stunned and speechless. And me? I stayed still, spine straight, eyes forward, heart steady. His breakdown wasn't my responsibility. His regret wasn't my burden. His apology wasn't my healing. That belonged to me alone. As the judge resumed control of the room and moved forward with the hearing, I felt a strange warmth settle over me, not joy, not triumph, but closure. What happened today wasn't the end of the story, but it was the beginning of my story. One where I finally saw my own worth reflected not in his eyes, but in my own strength. And as the gavel echoed across the room like a final heartbeat of the past, I whispered to myself, "You survived him, now you'll live without him." 9. The day the truth finally spoke. The courtroom slowly emptied, but the echo of what had just happened, his sudden collapse, his trembling voice, his desperate plea, hung thick in the air like smoke after a fire. People kept glancing back at me as they left, whispering in disbelief, some with sympathy, others with shock. But I sat perfectly still, hands clasped together, grounding myself in the wooden bench beneath me. My lawyer touched my arm gently. "You did well," she whispered.
Don't let his breakdown confuse you.
"Confuse me?"
No if anything, it clarified everything.
His moment of weakness wasn't love. It wasn't remorse. It was fear, fear of losing control, fear of facing consequences, fear of seeing me rise without him. And fear was not enough to fix years of breaking me. Outside the courtroom, the hallway felt larger and louder than before, filled with echoes of heels, murmured conversations, and the cold sweeping air of old buildings. I walked slowly, not rushed, not shaken, just present. I could feel him behind me. Not close enough to touch me, not bold enough to speak, but close enough that his presence shivered against my spine. "Ma'am," my lawyer said quietly, "do you want to wait in the side corridor? He seems unstable." "I'm fine," I replied. And for the first time, I truly meant it. We reached the main exit.
Sunlight streamed through the glass doors in long golden strip, catching dust in the air like tiny suspended star. He stepped into the brightness, breathing in the warm afternoon air.
But as soon as I took my first step outside, I heard him. "Please wait." His voice was soft, broken, nothing like the man who once looked me in the eyes and declared, "This house is not yours." I turned slowly, not with anger, not with softness, just with calm, steady resolve. He stood there, breathless, eyes red, shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally. Like a man who realized too late that he had destroyed the only thing that ever truly loved him. His attempt to talk. "I didn't mean," he began, then stopped, swallowing hard. "I didn't mean to hurt you."
Not like that. Things just got out of control.
I didn't respond. He rubbed his hands together nervously. "You weren't supposed to hear those words." I was angry. Frustrated. "I didn't think." "You didn't think," I interrupted softly. "That part is true." He blinked, surprised by my tone. Calmness unsettled him. He expected tears, trembling, maybe even anger. But the absence of those things made him uneasy. "I was trying to protect the house," he said weakly. "You know how inheritance works in my family. It's not about the house," I said firmly. He froze. "It was never about the house," I repeated. "It was about how easily you could choose your ego over me. How quickly you were willing to humiliate me. How naturally you spoke cruelty." The truth hit him harder than my silence ever could. His lips parted, but no words came. My lawyer stepped slightly forward, protective. "We don't need to stay here." But I lifted a hand gently. "It's okay. Let him listen to what he never cared to hear." The weight of everything unsaid. For a moment we stood there, three people frozen in a pocket of sunlight on courthouse steps, while the world moved around us. "I didn't realize it would break you," he whispered. "That's the problem," I replied. "You didn't think I could break. You assumed I would bend every time. That I would stay silent. That I would tolerate anything you threw at me, because that's what I always did." His jaw tightened with shame. "You never saw me as someone who could leave," I continued.
You thought no matter what you said, what you did, I'd still be there.
"And when I wasn't, you panicked." He closed his eyes, breathing shakily. I know I failed. I know I." "Stop," I said gently. "This isn't about making me feel sorry for you." His eyes shot open, glistening with wetness he tried to hide. "I just want one chance to fix it," he whispered desperately. "Just one." The answer he didn't expect. A light breeze brushed past us, lifting the edges of my hair. I inhaled deeply, feeling the scent of sunlight and the distant noise of traffic. For the first time, I felt completely, wholly separate from him. Like two roads had finally diverged, and I was no longer standing at the crossroads.
You can't fix what you broke, he said softly.
Not because it's impossible, but because I don't want you to. He stumbled a step backward as if I had physically struck him. I gave you chances, I continued. More than you deserved. I forgave you when you didn't apologize. I stayed when you didn't ask me to. But this was the moment I realized that staying was costing me pieces of myself. His breathing turned unsteady.
Please, don't do this. Don't give up on me.
I'm not giving up, I said. I'm choosing myself. The shift inside him. His shoulders sagged as if the air had been knocked out of him. For the first time, he didn't try to argue, blame, or manipulate. He simply stood there, broken, helpless, trembling. You don't love me anymore, he whispered, voice cracking. I looked at him for a long moment. And then I answered with the truth he feared most.
I loved you enough to lose myself.
Now I love myself enough to let you go. His face crumpled. Tears, real ones, slipped down his cheeks.
Not loud sob, not dramatic crying, juste quiet, heartbreak.
But it wasn't my job to heal him. Not anymore.
The farewell without goodbye.
My lawyer gently touched my elbow. We should leave. I nodded, taking one last breath of the moment. Then I turned away from him, not with hatred, but with finality. Behind me, I heard him whisper one last thing, voice barely audible.
Please, don't walk away.
But my steps didn't stop. For years, I walked around my worth. Today, I walked into it. Each step down the courthouse stairs felt like shedding chains. Each breath felt like reclaiming life. Each heartbeat whispered freedom. By the time I reached the bottom step, the sun felt warmer.
The world felt wider.
The future felt real. And him? He was just another chapter one had finished reading.
The day he chose my own name.
The days after the hearing moved differently, slower, softer, almost like life was giving me space to breathe for the first time in years. The world didn't rush me, didn't push me, didn't demand anything from me. And for once, I didn't demand anything from myself either. I woke up not to arguments, not to slammed doors, not to the weight of his presence, just silence. A gentle, calm silence that wrapped itself around me like a blanket. It was strange at first. Strange, but beautiful. I had spent so long living in a house filled with noise, arguments, doubts, fear, that the absence of chaos felt unreal. But slowly, day by day, it became home. The phone that didn't matter anymore. He tried calling. For the first few days, his name repeatedly lit up my phone. The notifications buzzed through the quiet of my apartment. Calls, messages, long paragraphs of apologies, promises, desperate pleas. But I didn't open a single one. Not because I wanted to torture him.
Not because he wanted revenge.
But because I finally understood something life had tried to teach me 1,000 times. Just because someone is sorry doesn't mean you owe them your peace again. So I let his words sit unread, unanswered, unimportant. My silence was not anger. It was closure. The visit to the old house. One afternoon I drove to the house, the one he once pointed at and declared, "This house is not yours." I didn't go to reclaim it. I didn't go to confront him. I went because I wanted to see how it felt. How it felt to stand where I once cried. How it felt to breathe where I once suffocated. How it felt to return not as a victim, but as a woman who survived. When I reached the street, a strange calmness settled over me. The house looked the same windows, same balcony, same white paint, but it didn't feel the same. It felt smaller. Not physically, but emotionally. Like the moment I walked out, it had shrunk to its true size, no longer a castle of fear, no longer a symbol of power, no longer a place that defined my worth.
Just a building.
Nothing more. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. Walking away from it felt like closing a door that had stayed open for too long. A new beginning that didn't announce itself. Healing didn't come suddenly. It didn't knock on my door. It didn't wake me up in the middle of the night.
It came slowly, quietly. In the way he made my morning tea. In the way he sat by the window with sunlight on my face.
In the way my shoulders relaxed when I realized no one was watching my every move. I started reading again, something I hadn't done in years. I started writing again, small notes, feelings, moments. I started listening to music he used to say was stupid.
He started finding myself again. Piece by piece.
And with every piece I found, I felt a weight lift off me, like reclaiming all the parts of me I had given up just to make someone else comfortable. The message I finally opened. Weeks passed before I finally opened his final message. It was short, simple, quiet. I understand.
Job one de jul forgive me.
If not, I hope you still find a life that feels like home. I don't deserve to ask anything from you. I just wanted to say, thank you for the years you tried. I didn't cry. Not because I was cold. Not because I didn't feel anything. But because his message no longer had the power to shake the ground beneath my feet.
Iriditons.
I closed it. And then gently, I deleted the entire conversation.
Not out of Angers.
But because some doors must close completely, or they will always remain half open.
The day everything changed.
A few weeks later, I received a letter, official, stamped, final. The divorce was complete. I held the envelope for a long moment, feeling its weight. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't painful. It was freeing. For years, I stayed because I thought leaving meant failure. But holding that paper, I realized something profound. Staying in the wrong story is the only real failure. Choosing yourself is the beginning of a new one. I placed the letter on my table gently, like something sacred. Then I opened the window, letting the sunlight flood my small apartment. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I smiled. A real smile.
A soft, honest, unconcerned smile.
That evening, I took a walk. No destination, no purpose, just fresh air and quiet skies. The world felt different. Not new. Not reborn. Just finally visible. As I walked, I saw couples laughing, families talking, children running, old men sipping tea on roadside stools. Life moved, unaware of my story, unaffected by my pain. And somehow that made me feel lighter.
Because my suffering wasn't the center of the universe anymore.
It didn't define the world. It didn't define me. When I sat on a bench near a little park, a soft breeze brushed my face, carrying the smell of night flowers.
I closed my eyes.
And in that moment, I said the words I had waited years to say.
I forgive myself for staying too long. I forgive myself for leaving too late.
And I forgive myself for finally choosing me. Not him.
Not the house.
Not the past. Me. As the sky darkened into a quiet twilight, I looked up and whispered gently to the universe. This time, my story begins with my own name.
No husband defining me. No house trapping me. No voices silencing me.
Just me, standing in the middle of my life, finally in control of my own narrative. And that was the moment I understood. The strongest thing a woman can ever do is walk away from the place where her heart was forgotten and rebuild a life where she is finally seen. And so, my story didn't end in a courtroom. It didn't end in heartbreak. It didn't end in sorrow. It ended, beautifully, powerfully, the moment I returned to myself. And that was only the beginning.